All right, it's June, and this is the beginning of my June videos. Okay, I read a book, Boston Jacky by L.A. Meyer. Once again, we are on the Bloody Jack Adventures train. This is book 11, and once again I'm making a reading vlog that's just about this book and the next book, which probably will be finished by the time June is over, so I'm guessing it'll like be done and on YouTube before this one. But anyway, so I don't want to talk about this that much here. It was fine. Like, I don't know, I felt, I don't know, more neutral towards it, I think. Like, not one of my favorites of the series. It's not really super exciting, although I did find the ending pretty funny. And just kind of, oh, a lot just happened. But this one is set primarily in Boston, and Jacky has decided that she's going to try and settle down in Boston as she works on building her company and running her company, and opening up a little like playhouse and running the Pig and Whistle, which she just at the beginning of the book buys from the previous owners. And she keeps getting in trouble with everybody because the sort of the blue blood people in charge of Boston really don't like her, and a number of the Irishmen that she has transported to Boston in terms of like they have to pay their indentures off, have decided they don't want to do that, and so that's a bit of an issue. I mean, like, I think most of them are paying her, but there's kind of a dedicated chunk that are like, no, we're going to join this gang instead, fuck you. So she's having to deal with that, and then Jamie shows up in Boston in disguise and immediately is like, oh no, Jacky doesn't love me because there's this naked painting of her, and I was like, I don't fucking have time for this boy anymore. But anyway, more thoughts on that in the actual reading vlog video. Alright, so today I finished listening to Real Queer America by Samantha Allen. This is a nonfiction book where she talks about her this road trip that she took to talk to all these different people in red states who are queer. That maybe should have been phrased in a slightly more comprehensible way. No, the point is like queer people living in red states, living in small cities, not generally small towns, but like small cities. And, you know, like the community building and the activism and like why they want to live in those places, etc., etc. And it was interesting. It really was. And it was really just a nice book. None of the states that she went to are states that I particularly care about. Like, kind of shitty, but like, you know, I didn't know going in what states she was going to cover, and none of them are states that are very close to me, like personally, physically close to me, I suppose, because she didn't talk about Indiana. There's part where she was in Bloomington, Indiana for a while, and I was like, I mean, okay. But, yeah, I don't know, you know, it's like Utah and Texas and Mississippi and, you know, just kind of some traveling around, and largely they were states where she knew some people there. And it was a really nice thing to read. Like, there was a lot of different people in different places in the country, like from I can't speak, Atlanta, which is, you know, or Austin or Houston, which are all fairly large cities. I don't know exactly what the population of them are. I mean, I know Houston's like the 4th largest, and I'm not sure if the census data is gonna make it the 3rd largest yet or not, which I hope it doesn't, because I'm from Chicago. What can I say? But you know, but they're obviously not like really small in any sense, or like smaller cities like, say, Jackson, Mississippi. But yeah, it's interesting. Also, she talks a lot about her own life, because she grew up Mormon, because she's trans, so she transitioned like in college, I guess, or post-college. Started to figure this out in college, I guess. And yeah, just I guess she transitioned in graduate school, something like that. Yeah. But, you know, so the first thing she does is she goes back to Provo, Utah, where she went to BYU for like 2 years or something, and, you know, she didn't finish there, she left. But, you know, and discovering the queer community in Provo, which she hadn't even been aware of when she lived there at all, and, you know, and then driving on this massive road trip with this friend of hers, and it was interesting, and you got to kind of hear about a lot of people and places in America that are interesting to hear about. And then, like, it's in 2017, and it's very 2017, right? It's like, there's, you know, mention of the political situation in 2017. So, it's interesting, for sure. And it's interesting to kind of read it and think like, well, here's stuff that's better now, but here's also stuff that's just still happening and still sucks. And I think one of the nice things about learning about these queer communities in red states is this idea of like, that they know that they have to stick together, and that they are, sorry, there's like paint in my hair, I think. It's fine. But that, you know, that they are what they have, they have to stick together, but also like these people just love these places that they're from. They don't want to leave them, and they want to like fight to make them better, which is cool. So yeah, it was a good book. It really was. I would definitely recommend it. And I was just kind of like, Libby, give me something queer for June, and it definitely delivered with this book. So we'll see if I can find anything else before the month is over, but this, if not, this was a very good book to read in Pride Month, and in general. Should read it. Today I finished listening to The Lost Man by Jane Harper. So this is the third book of hers that I have listened to. I think it's also just her third book. She writes these very like atmospheric, like very place dependent mystery set in Australia. And this one was pretty great. It was about how do I describe it? Okay, so it's set in the outback, and it's about the main character is this guy who has a ranch on the outback. I guess that's what everybody does. I don't know. They have cows, and his brother is found dead at a point kind of in their land. But like the thing is that they have an absolutely massive amount of land, and like truly, like his nearest neighbor is the rest of his family, and they live like 3 hours away. It's horrifying, but anyway, and this brother is dead, and it's obvious that he's died, you know, of exposure, because it's summer in Australia, and it's he was just out there without any water and without any like shelter or anything, so that's what killed him. But the real question is, what was he doing out there? And especially after they find his Jeep, or it's not a Jeep, his truck, and it's perfectly functional, it's full of all the supplies that he needed, it just happens to be 10 kilometers away from him. So they're like, why did he leave his truck? What on earth is going on? And that's the mystery. Plus a lot of family drama, and a lot of history, family drama history, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very interesting place to set a mystery, and a really just interesting mystery too, just the kind of strangeness of like, why is this You know, what is he doing out there by himself without, you know, he knew better, right? So why was he there? And it really gets into some stuff. Yeah. This book does not involve the character of, what was his name? Falk, who was like the detective character from the first 2 books. So he's not in this one. But that makes sense. I mean, it's just kind of a story where it's like, he wouldn't fit. It wouldn't make sense to have him be there. Nathan, instead, is this main character who starts poking around a little bit to try and figure out what happened to his brother. But it's something like really only somebody who knows the family and the area and all of the circumstances might be able to figure out anyway. So it's just such an interesting thing how they live so far away from everybody and like have to consider survival at every turn. Plus it's also sort of a Christmas novel because it's set at Christmas, but because it's Australia, it's also the middle of summer, so that's interesting. And it's a good book. Yeah, I would say if I were ranking Jane Harper's books, this is tough because I would say Force of Nature is my least favorite. That was book 2. I'm not sure how I would rank this in comparison to The Dry, because I really liked The Dry, but I might like this one a little more. Not really sure. I liked I don't want to spoil the ending of, you know, finding out what happened to Cameron and why, but I liked what it was, and it's a thing that I like in mysteries. Sometimes, not all the time, but, you know, the idea of, if I can be, how vague can I be, that justice was served, I guess. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that it was, that like whatever happened was in the confines of the law, but it was justice, you know, like it's complicated. But anyway, yeah, it was a good book, and it was such an interesting place to set it. And I'm also just sitting here like, when will Libby get an audiobook of her 4th book? Because they don't have it yet. And maybe one just hasn't been made yet, because her 4th book came out like, honestly, probably last year. So I should probably calm down, but I really wouldn't listen to it. Yeah, so it was a very good book. I finished Tales from Ovid by Ted Hughes. I mean, it's not, it's by Ovid. Translated by Ted Hughes. So, okay, so this is supposed to be 24 segments or whatever from the Metamorphoses. And there's also an introduction by the author, by Ted. Because I've never read any Ovid, because I wasn't a classics major. But for some reason, years ago, I saw this at the library and was intrigued by it, but not enough to actually check it out. And then I put it on my Goodreads TBR, and then it languished there for like 7 years. So finally, I've read it. I liked it. Poetry is not really my thing, but I thought it was it was interesting because, okay, so what Ovid does is he basically just takes stories from Greek mythology, and Ovid, for the record, was living during the time of Augustus, I think. And anyway, he takes stories from Greek mythology and he focuses on the stories that have to do with metamorphosis. So any story that involves someone turning into something else, which happens like a lot. Like Zeus is out there turning into all sorts of weird things. I don't know why there's a whole ongoing thing. Like this isn't even in here, actually. But I just remember there's a lot of stories where it'll be like, oh, Zeus turned into a swan and seduced this woman. And I'm like, why did that work? Why did that work? But anyway, and people are just forever turning into trees or melting into water or being cursed in various horrible ways. What's interesting, I thought, in this book is just how graphic it all gets, because I wasn't expecting, you know, quite so much detail of murder and just death and just awful things happening in a just sumptuous detail. But it was, I mean, that definitely kept me intrigued to read it. Do I have a favorite? I'm not really sure, because the minute that I look at all these names, I'm like, who are these people? There are a number of stories in here that have to do with rape, quite unpleasantly. The other day, because I've been reading it over the course of a couple weeks, and the other day I read Niobe, and there's this bit where she's like, haha, I'm so much better than Leto, because I have 14 children, she only has 2, and it's like, she's like, even if some of them were to die, I would still have more children. I'm like, the gods, what do you think is going to stop the gods from just killing all of your children? Which they do. Oh, and that story was annoying too, because none of the daughters gets a name. The sons all get names. The daughter, I'm like, come on, Ovid. None of these people matter because they're all dead, right? So why not give the daughters names too? Also, this is not important, but there's a whole list of other things that he's written and translated. In one of his translations, Lorca's Blood Wedding. What the fuck is that? Like, what is a blood wedding? And who is Lorca? Am I interested in that just because of Star Trek Discovery? Yes. Yes. Okay, so anyway, this was good, like, in that it was very readable and very, like, detailed, and just a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, a lot of really detailed descriptions of just everything. In a very, like, not detailed descriptions as in now you know what stuff looks like, but you know just all of the details of the emotion, and so many, like, similes and metaphors, and I don't know, it was just really a lot going on in here, and I liked it. And I guess I'm glad I finally read it. Like, now at least I know what the Metamorphoses is, because I didn't before. I sort of know. This is obviously not the whole thing, I guess, but it was an idea. I don't know why Ovid wrote it, but he did. Let me see. These translations are perfect for the 1990s, apparently. And this guy was the poet laureate to Queen Elizabeth II. I assume he isn't anymore, because, like, that's a long time. But I don't know, maybe he is, or maybe he's dead. Who knows? There's a lot of things. Anyway, whatever. I really liked it. I thought it was interesting as a translation. It wasn't, like, dry. It wasn't overly trying to force the verse to rhyme. It really doesn't rhyme at all. You know, it just really, I thought, worked. So. Okay, so I listened to the audiobook for the Postman Always Rings Twice by James M. Cain. And it was very short. It's only 3-hour long audiobook because it's a really short book. It's like almost 200 pages, I think, but less than 200 pages. Yeah, it's crazy short. The audiobook is read. The audiobook is read by Stanley Tucci. So that was kind of cool. It's a noir type story. It's about this guy who's kind of a drifter, and he makes his way, I guess he makes his way into Southern California from Mexico, I think. And he comes across this just like roadside restaurant / I think they fix cars too, and ends up getting hired by the man who owns it. and then ends up falling for his wife, and then they're like, we're gonna try and kill the guy, and then this keeps spiraling. And I regret to say I didn't really like it that much. Like, I don't know, it's so short that it's hard to judge, right? And it's an older book, like it's from the 30s. So that, you know, affects things, of course. But you know, I mean, some of Agatha Christie's stuff is from the 30s, and I am in love with basically everything she wrote. Well, I suppose some of her books weren't good. I think it's agreed, but a lot of her books were very good. So it's not just that. I don't know. Okay. So I guess I was never very invested in the story, not very invested in the characters. I found some of it kind of funny, because they would like be trying to plan to do something, and then some dumb thing would happen that would screw it all up, or potentially screw it up in the moment of like, oh shit, where's my hat? Or there's this cat there. Like, there's this whole plot where the first time they try to kill the husband, and he's got like he's gonna, let's see, what was it? Oh, the wife was gonna climb out of the bathroom window down a ladder, and so the main character is on kind of the lookout. But then this cat keeps trying to climb up the ladder, and he's like trying to shoo it away, and it's like, it's comedic. Yeah, and I just like, I don't know. I didn't really care that much. And then, I don't know, I mean, I guess I just prefer a noir that's a bit longer, maybe, but I never felt like I felt these characters supposed to be so passionately attracted to each other that they do all this stuff, and I was like, I just don't feel it. Also, there was some unpleasantness in, I felt, in the way that they talked about Mexican people briefly, but largely the way that they talked about the husband because he's Greek. And also one paragraph that I think was derogatory about Italians, but I'm not sure, because Italian is not the word that they used. So, you know, you can imagine that was not fun. But mostly it's the stuff about the Greek. I'm like, can you calm down? And it's like he likes the guy even. I'm just, whatever. I didn't like that. And then, okay, and then there's a chunk in the middle of the book where there's this trial, and I just didn't really understand the machinations that the lawyer went to for him. Like, he does explain it in detail, and I'm sitting here like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get how this is supposed to work. So, yeah, I don't know. I just overall didn't really care for it, although I think, like, the writing itself was good. Like, it was very kind of spare, I guess, which I like. And also, it was banned in Boston. Fun fact. I'm not entirely sure why, but I guess they're just notoriously puritanical in Boston or something. Which is funny, because I wouldn't think of Boston myself as a particularly conservative place, but then I'm not from the East Coast, so what do I know? And also, I guess, compared to New York, it is. I don't know. What the fuck am I saying? Who cares? The point is that I didn't like it that much. But I don't know. I mean, I can see that it has merit in the way it was written, I guess. But it's supposed to be, like, a quite good book, I thought I heard. So I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe I'm dumb. I don't know if there's a movie, and I'd watch it if there was. But the title, that's the other thing. I don't understand why it's called that. What does it mean, the postman always rings twice? Like, is this, I'm trying to think of it, like, I mean, obviously it's metaphorical. Is it in a sense of, like, I don't know, because the postman, you know, because it feels like, okay, ultimately, like, they don't get away. I don't know if I want to spoil this, but whatever, it's like almost 100 years old. This like 90-year-old, 170-page book, but they kill the guy, they get away with it, but then ultimately at the end of the day, comeuppance is served. I'll just say that. So is that what it means by the postman always rings twice? But like, the postman is not exactly an ominous figure. Like, he's not here trying to get something from you. I don't know. Anyway, not really my cup of tea, but I am glad I read it because I'm trying to get to having read 10 of my books that I want to read by the end of the month, so that I will have, you know, halfway point of the year, halfway through the list. So this being a super short book definitely helped. Hello. So, first of all, yes, I am in a completely different room because I moved. Yeah, so, you know, I have to figure out the best way to actually film things, but that's not for today. Well, I did it. I finished China Dream by Ma Jian just in time for the end of June. This was good. I don't know, God, how do I describe this? It's kind of satirical. It's about this guy who is the director of the China Dream, what do they call themselves? The China Dream Bureau. And he's got this idea that he wants to invent a device that will erase all of the previous memories and dreams from people and replace them with the China Dream, which is like this concept that their president Xi, I assume it's pronounced, is kind of, he uses it as a rhetorical device, I guess, of like, you know, the collectivist, what China wants to do and going into the future kind of thing. And it's kind of about that, but it's mostly about this character having all these recurring memories from the Cultural Revolution and that time period, like when he was younger, popping up and haunting him almost. And he kind of is losing his mind as the book goes on because he can't stop remembering things, and he wants to invent this thing so that like he won't remember all this stuff anymore because it gets in the way of looking to the glorious China Dream future. I was expecting it to be more speculative fiction than it is. It isn't really at all, because the device never actually exists at any point. He just thinks it would be a good idea to make it. And a lot of the book just kind of, it's kind of a combination of mocking him, and I think also all these hypocrisies of like, oh, we're gonna have this great future, and then there's this entire chapter about how they're like tearing down this village and displacing all these farmers so that they can build like this industrial area, and the way that they, I don't know, the guy's this government official and he's always taking bribes. But I thought it was really good. Like, and the author, Ma Jian, has written a number of books where he's kind of satirizing and talking like about social commentary about the way that China is, and he has this little afterword in here too about what he kind of meant to do with this book. And all of his books are banned in China, and he is also banned in China. He's exiled from China. So it's interesting. Obviously I'm not like that well versed in Chinese history, but something that he talks about in the afterword is how all of these truly horrific things that have happened in China in the 20th century have just been like ignored. You're not allowed to talk about them they're not acknowledged in like museums and stuff, which is anything from like the Great Leap Forward, which caused a massive famine, to the massacre in Tiananmen Square in Beijing. So yeah, anyway, this is a good book, and because I read it, because I finished it, it was on my list. I'm sure you can't read. I did it. It's the end of the second quarter, and I have read 10 of these books. And I was determined, because I was like, listen, I haven't read War and Peace yet. That's going to be the one that gets me behind. And nothing else ought to. It should be that. So, yeah. And then one other thing I wanted to mention. I finally got and read the like final volume of Mark Waid's Daredevil run. And I just wanted to show you like the hardcover underneath the dust jacket because I took it off. It's so pretty. Look at him. I'm not going to talk about it. I don't really count comics as books, but oh man. Art. Okay. I'm obsessed with Chris Samney's artwork. Okay. Anyway, I guess June's over now, but see you later.